Hey everyone, welcome back to Mini Bike Mike's Garage. A couple weeks ago, I posted a video on a red Honda S65, and in that video I explained that myself, my son, and a couple of his buddies were going to be riding little Honda mini bikes outfitted with Lifan engines 800 miles around Lake Michigan. And that Honda S65 was the first bike that I was getting ready to make that trip. Well, here's bike number 2. This is actually the bike I'm going to be riding. It is a 1980 Honda CT110, commonly referred to as a postie bike. These were used by the Australian Postal Service. And due to the big rack and being able to carry things, which is going to play a big part in why I'm taking this bike, because we're going to need to be able to carry some tools and supplies and so forth on this trip. So I thought this was a perfect bike. I also explained in that first video that to kind of cut down on the total number of parts and so forth that I need to carry, I'm trying to build bikes that all have the same engine, all have the same tire size and so forth. That way we only have to carry one tube and all those good things. So anyway, so that's one of the reasons this bike was picked. Give you a little bit of backstory on this. I got this bike in March of 2014. My father, actually, that's been 10 years ago, because we're March 19th of 2024 right now. My father worked at a scrap yard, and he picked this out of the scrap, and it was a disaster. And he gave it to me thinking I just want it for parts. And because at the time, I don't think I had a single step-through style bike. Well, my wife saw it, and she's like, wow, that's kind of cool little bike. She said, if you were able to get that up and going, and she said, I'd ride that. So I was like, okay, challenge accepted. So the first thing I did was made sure I could get a title, went through and did all the things I need to do in Indiana to get a title for it. And then after I secured the title, I started going through it, stripped it down, painted it. The engine was locked up and just, I think it was missing some parts. So I went ahead and went with the Lifan route and put it all back together. And she's ridden it a few times over the years. I've probably ridden it more than she has. I don't think we've put maybe more than 1,000 miles on it in the past 10 years. So we're almost going to double the mileage in this one trip on this bike. But I'll bring you in. Let's take a look at it and kind of explain to you what I need to do to get this bike ready to go and make sure that it goes 800 miles. The 1980 CT110 is somewhat unique. It's the very first year of the 110. It's the year that Honda went from a CT90 to a CT110. And when they did that, on this one model only, they dropped the high-low transmission on the engine. Now, obviously, I don't have it since I don't even have the original engine in it. But the 1980 CT110 is the only bike of the CT90, CT110 models that doesn't have that high-low switch and allows you to switch gears. So that's kind of unique about it, and it's kind of fun that this is the very first model of the 110s. I got really lucky in that it was somewhat complete. It still had the tank, the spare gas tank was with it. Had the headlight on it, that had the rims and tires, although they were kind of beat and so forth. But as you can see, like I said, I put a Lifan on it. Now, these aren't a direct bolt-in. You can see that hole right there was the original hole for the mounting hole for the engine. And you can see where this is the Lifan bolt. So I welded on a little tab on both sides. I did use the bottom bolt mounting hole, which is opposite of what most people who put one of these engines in. They usually use this hole and then use a, Dr. ATV sells a bracket for this bottom hole, but I was trying to drop it down as much as possible to get room for this carburetor to fit and so forth. So that's why I went this direction. The one bad part about it is I do have the chain is extremely close to the swing arm bolt right here. It's even closer right now because I've got straps on this and have the front end compressed, which kind of pulls it down. But in normal position, There's a piece of rubber that goes around here on the inside underneath the chain, and it gets close to it. It might rub it at times, but it hasn't affected the way it rides. Let's see, where do I want to go with this? The things that I need to do. As you can see, I've got a new seat right here. I bought this brand new seat, and the very first time I put it on, that bolt twisted off. And so the seat has always done this. So I want to get rid of that. I don't want to be fighting that for, the seat moving back and forth on me for 800 miles. I think the electrical is okay. We're going to go through it and double check it, but I believe the electrical is all right. I put really cheapy turn signals on this when I built it at the time, and I'm just going to leave those on there. As much as I'd like to swap them out to the Amazon ones that I've been using recently, those are going to stay. About the only thing electrically I want to do, just like on the S65, I want to put one of these USBs. It has the 2 USB plugs, and then it has the running voltmeter here on the top. So I think I'm going to wire that in so we can put it up on the handlebar so we can plug something in up there. I'm going to swap out the carburetor to it has a Nibbi carburetor on it, but I put too big a one. I've got a 24 on there. I'm going to drop it to a 22 millimeter Nibbi. I don't know what I'm going to do. One of the things I don't like, I can't access the carburetor because of this cover, okay? I can't get to the choke. I can't do anything. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the forward-facing carburetor, but we might do that. Or I might just cut this plastic out, just cut a notch out of it so I can access the carburetor. And I know somebody's going, oh, don't do that, but this one's already broken in a couple spots, and I actually have a brand new one that if we ever need to go back, I can put that one on there. So I'm not too worried about that. So we'll do that. So we got an intake, a carb, and a air filter cleaner, whatever you want to call those things. And then mirrors. I want to put some mirrors on it. And I've got to do the same thing I did on the S65. Since I'm not using this perch right here, I'm going to cut that off. And hang on a second, I forgot to grab it. I'm going to add this perch for the mirror on both sides. So not a ton of work to do to this bike, but enough that I thought I'd film it and jump into it and we'd kind of go over it. I think the tires are in good shape. Yeah, the tires have good tread. We're okay there. Like I said, I'm hoping the electrical is good. So I don't even know if it has a battery in it. These engines don't need a battery to run. I had this bike licensed at one point, had it plated and everything, which I need to redo. Yes, it does have a battery in it. April of 2014, so that's when I built the bike. So that's the battery I put in there when I originally built the bike. Here you can kind of see the tab a little bit better where I welded that on for the engine mount, and that's the original hole for the original engine. It's a 2-bolt. The original was a 2-bolt, but it was a little wider spread than on these CT70 style mounting engines. So I sure wish these engines were readily available again. 10 years ago, these black semi-automatic 125 engines were, man, they were cheap. They were like $200, easily to get. Hey, look right there. That still has the paper tag. These engines came with this tag from Lifan. And I always just kept them on the engine. Date of manufacture, 4/22/14, 2014, wow. So we'll keep that on there. It's been on there for 10 years. No sense taking it off now. All right, guys, I'm going to jump into this. Probably do some of the simple things first, the seat, the mirrors and stuff, and then we will, the big thing is to jump into that carburetor and see what I need to do to be able to access this area a little bit better. So the mirrors and the seat went pretty much as expected, just bolts on, 2 bolts there. I really like these KemiMoto mirrors. I've been using these on the last few builds. Easy to install, easy to adjust, and you can see, you know, they're long enough and so forth that I can see, which is nice. So I'll put a link in the description on Amazon where I get these, but so far so good. I think I've used these on 3 or 4 bikes now, and I really like those. Next thing is we need to take a look at this carburetor. I think before I just go hacking on this and cutting this, I think I want to see what it looks like if I tried to put the carburetor out front. I'm not a huge fan of that look, but I think I would rather do that than cut this. Cutting this is kind of a last resort. I did drill a hole in it so that throttle cable could go down through there years ago, 10 years ago when I built the bike. But if I can get away from not having to fully cut it, I really like to do that. Let's see, I think if I just do that for right now, that'll let me access. I think I'm going to pull off this intake and set this one on there with a carb and kind of see how far it sticks out in the front. I've taken just a standard Lifan, I'm going to call it a Lifan intake. It's the intake you get when you buy most of these aftermarket engines. They're all kind of clocked at the same angle. Now you can buy a little adapter plate that you can bolt onto the head, and then it allows you to index the carb wherever you want it. I'm not, yeah, I could do that. I'm not going to do that. I don't know. I want to get it done, and I'll have one of those. If I had it, I might try it. Anyway, for what I've got on here now, I can't bolt it this way. The idle adjustment and all that hits the frame before I can get it clocked around enough to get the bolt holes to line up. So that's not going to work for me. I think I can put it this direction and have it go out the front, and it also looks like that might clear this cover. That bolts on somewhere around there. And if that bolts out there, yeah, I can access the throttle or the idle screw. The choke is right here, and I believe there's actually enough room to come by here with the throttle cable. The issue now might be with my air filter thing. Won't probably fit with the down tube. But you know what? I'm willing to sacrifice that down tube to get that to fit. Yep, I think that's what we're going to do. Let me bring you around this side so you can kind of see it a little bit better. You're probably not seeing a thing I'm talking about. So I believe we can put the carb right in that area. Got easy access to the choke, the idle adjustment, and I believe the cable is going to have, we might have to squeeze that in a little bit, but I believe the cable can slide right by that. Now the issue is going to be this tube right here. So you know what? I think we'll just take that off. It didn't mount very well at the bottom anyway. So I think we'll just go ahead and take that crash bar or engine guard. I think we'll just go ahead and take that off to be able to mount that on there. And there we go. That's going to bolt right there. That's going to go there. It's going to clear the tire, I believe. So I think we should be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and get that bolted all in place. Figure out what I'm going to do with that drain to keep it off of the exhaust. We may just drain it right on the exhaust. That way it'll catch on fire and the whole thing will burn down. Yeah. All right, let's get that taken care of. So I ran the throttle cable around the front of the handlebars and around. I'm hoping, if we get lucky, that it'll actually go maybe underneath that cover. And there's enough play that it won't get, you know, as you turn the wheel, it won't get in a bind. So let's see if the cover fits over top of that. Something like that. Oh, yeah, that might work. And then hopefully it's got enough play up here that we can turn the wheel. I've got it all strapped down. And then that goes on there. And like I said, I'm not a real fan of that forward carb look, but if it allows me to not have to cut up this and get this to all bolt, I think it will. I think that's going to work. So got to figure out what I want to do with a drain. But anyway, that's easy stuff. We'll figure that out. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to, I need to take the straps off and get the front end, and let's see, I got to roll this back. We need to make sure that we can move the wheel and not interfere with all this and not have the cable in a bind up here the way I routed the cable around the front of the handlebars. Now, one thing I didn't consider or didn't think about with this carb is that by mounting it in the direction I have it, is it sitting higher now. Uh-oh, I got a leak or something. By coming up this way instead of down the other way, is it higher, too high for the tank? Although I'm getting a little bit of a drip here. So fuel must have gotten its way to the bowl. Okay, I'm going to let it down. We're going to roll it back a little bit and just check that throttle action. Make sure that we don't have everything in a bind. I gotta go back farther than I thought. Oh, I think that's actually going to be okay. Well, let's see if it'll start. I have not started it yet, so you're seeing it for the first time. Oh, one kick. I tell you, other than adjusting that idle, these 22 millimeter Nibbis, I've never made an adjustment to them. I've never changed the jet. I've never changed any kind of setting for air-fuel mixture. I've bolted them on, and away they've gone with these 125s. Every single bike, the yellow SL70, my clone Amigo Rocky bike, that S65, every time I've ever used one of these, just like what you just saw, bolt it on, go. Bam. And it's so much easier to access right here. Yeah, my only concern is going to be to get fuel flow to that carb. I may tie that down a little bit or something. All right, while it's running, let's check some of the electrical. The key only has on and off, so we've got an off on the headlight. Let's see if the headlight comes on. It did. And the tail light came on. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I see illumination in the speedometer. I don't seem to have high or low, but that's okay as long as I have a headlight. You know what? I think that's supposed to be high and it's probably burnt out. It is. I bet that's what that is. Although this says high and low over here. I think I bet you the way I have it wired was... Oh, I see what's going on. No, the whole headlight itself was burnt out. The only thing I've got on is that little driving light that's at the bottom. Well, there we go. So, high beam's working, but low beam is burnt out. I bet without a battery, the turn signals aren't going to work. Nope. All right, we need to dig into it and get the turn signals to work. So I went down to my local AutoZone and I picked up a new battery. For you guys that are going to ask me what battery I use, this is a Duralast AZX4L. That's the battery that I put in most of my bikes. So I'm going to take a minute here and just get this thing hooked up, and that way we can check our electrics a little bit better. I have a feeling that this old bike, being built that many years ago, this was before the TB515 harness. Can't tell. I wonder if that's I bet that's a Webb LLC harness, which means the headlights and everything probably operate off the battery. They'll operate off the stator too, because you saw the headlight came on. But I'm gonna guess that the battery will operate the lights without turning on the engine, starting the engine. Find out here in just a second. Come on, get on there. There it goes. All right. Okay, you know what? I wanted to measure, get a base measurement on the voltage on this battery before we start. Okay, so I'm seeing 12.35. 12.35 is what we've got right now. Yeah, see there, see if the battery's, or the camera's backed up far enough. Yeah, you can see it. See how the headlight came on and the bike's not even running. So all this brake light works there. Brake light works. I wonder if we got a turn signal. Turn signal, turn signal. Oh, yeah, even the indicator is working. Turn signal. The indicator inside the speedometer is working. Let's see. Our high beam indicator is not working, but that's okay. Yeah, we're going to have to pull that and change the bulb, because when I go to low beam, I got no bulb. All right, turn all that off. Let's, we're down to, with running those lights, we're down to 12.19, and 12.2, it's starting to climb a little bit. Okay, key on. Sorry, scooting you guys. Let's see if it'll fire back up without kicking all these wires off. I'm sure it will. Tell you what, I'll just go ahead and take them off. Yeah, we're charging good. 13.5, 13.7. Jumped up to about 15, a little over 15. So good. So we're charging, so we should be fine. Well, that's all good. All right, I think I'm going to pull the headlight and look at that, see if I got another bulb that'll fit that so we can get a low beam, and maybe look at our, you know what I didn't look at was the neutral light. Yeah, we got no neutral light either. I'd kind of like to have that working. So let's pull the headlight apart and see if we can get those two things going. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up day one right there. The bike is essentially ready to go. I got all the electrical kind of worked out. I never did get the high beam or the neutral indicator bulbs. They have the funniest little, it's a tiny little bulb socket. I don't know what size bulb they use. On all the other speedometers, Honda speedometers I've messed with, you put a 1445 12 volt bulb in there and away you go. But a 1445 is too big for those two spots. So that's why those don't work, because I never figured out 10 years ago what bulb to put in there. And I'm not going to mess with them now. Everything else works. I got that, got the headlight, got both high and low beam on the headlight to work, and all the turn signals work. So I'm pretty happy. We're going to stop with that. The carburetor, turning it like that seems to be okay. I actually kind of like not having that throttle cable come down like I had it before, so that's okay. I do kind of miss the little engine guard, but that's all right. You know, I'd rather it work correctly than look correctly. So, but we're not done with the video yet. Now I have to figure out storage for that back rack and what I'm going to do to carry the items I need to carry on this bike for 800 miles. So that's what we'll come back in a day or so and wrap this video up and figure out what we're going to do there. All right, guys, it's day 2 on the Honda CT110, and I got a couple more things I need to do to finish this bike up. The first thing we're going to do is tackle the key switch. I have decided to swap out the one that was on the bike for a couple reasons. One, I only have one key, and this key does not look particularly good. It's all bent and twisted, and I'm a little bit afraid that if we break a key off or whatever, well, then we don't have one because I don't have a spare. So, and this is only a 2-position switch. It's either on or off, and that's the only positions this one has. So I'm going to install one of the CT70 K0 style switches that I get off of Amazon. And in the last couple days, I've had, I don't know, 2 or 3, maybe 4 different people contact me on how do I get this switch to work with the like TB515 or TB422 harness, any of the 12 volt harnesses. So I know I've shown this before, but I guess we'll do it one more time. Maybe it helps somebody out. So to begin with, these harnesses, all of these 12 volt harnesses basically have 4 wires for the key switch. And it is a simple design. There is a green wire and a black and white wire. Those are ground, and the black and white is the kill wire that goes to the CDI. And basically in the off position on the key switch, it allows the green and the black and white to have continuity, and they're connected. And so the CDI is being grounded, and that kills the spark. At the exact same time that that's happening, those 2 wires are making a connection, the red wire and black wire in the harness are disconnected, and that is killing power from the battery to the rest of the harness. So it shuts down lights and anything electrical. Okay, so that's basically what happens. And then when you put it on the on position, it does the exact opposite. Now it's disconnecting the ground and the kill wire so the engine will run, and it's connecting the black wire and the red wire so that they make a connection, so now all your headlights and everything works. So, okay, so that's how the harness works. So how do we get this key switch to work? Well, what I've done, the very first thing I do is I cut that big old plug off of there. I cut that off. And the key switch has, what's it have, 7 wires in it. You're not going to use the yellow one, the blue one, or the brown with the white stripe. You're going to use the red, the green, the black, and the brown. Unfortunately, it's not a just direct color to color hookup. So what I've done is I cut this plug off, and I have installed one that has the 4 pins that will plug into the plug on that harness. The first 2 wires do match up. The red wire in the harness, you can match, or in the key switch, you can match up to the red wire in the harness. Same way with the green ground wire in the key switch, you can hook it to the green wire that's going to be in the harness. Now from there, instead of black and white, there is a black wire in the key switch that corresponds with the green wire. They have continuity in the off position. So this black wire from the key switch is going to go to the black and white wire in the harness. So in the off position, these 2 will make continuity and kill the engine. In the key switch, there is a brown wire, and that is going to hook to the solid black that is in the harness. The red wire and the brown wire have continuity in the second on position, and that lets you turn on the headlights. So I know that's kind of a quick overview and might have went too fast. If I apologize. So I'm going to plug that plug into the harness right here. Put my key in. So, which, I got 2 keys now. So now we've got a spare that we can carry in case we do happen to lose one on this 800-mile trip. So in the off position, I've connected the green and the black and white wire, so the engine will not start. I'm not going to let it down and try and kick it over, but just believe me, it will not start. At the same time, we have disconnected the electrical to the lights, the horn, any of that stuff has been disconnected. This particular key switch, now you can click it 1 click. You have taken it off of the off position, so now the engine will run, but we still have it connected, the electrical wires to the headlights. So now you can run the engine, ride the bike, and none of the electrical will come on. No tail light, no headlight, still no horn. Then if you want to, you can click it again to the second on position, and you might have seen a headlight come on. We've got a horn, we've got brake lights, and oh, I thought that was turn signal switch. I'm on the wrong side. Turn signals and all those good things. Turn it back to off, and hopefully all that went off. So there you go. Just a really quick tutorial on how that key switch works. And it just fits right into this bike, just like the stock one did. Like I said, this is basically just a copy of the CT70K0 switch. So I'm going to put that all in there, get that buttoned up, and then we'll move on to something else. All right, before I wrap this bike up, there's really one more thing that I want to do or need to do before we take off on that 800-mile trip. Off camera, I did finish up a couple things that I didn't show you. I put on one of the USB plug-ins like I did. If you watched the Honda S65 video, you saw me install this. It's got 2 USB plugs, and then it actually has a little running voltmeter on it to let you know how the battery's doing, how the charging system's doing. That worked out really well, so I went with another one of those. The other thing I did off camera, I changed the foot pegs. I went to check the gearing on this bike, look at the front sprocket, and I realized I could not get the stator cover off with the foot pegs that I had on the bike. So I'm trying to make our life as simple as possible. If we do have a breakdown on the road and I need to get that cover off to do something or whatever, I certainly don't want to have to take time to take the foot pegs off. So I swapped those and had to shorten a kickstand and do those sorts of things. So, you know, that's the only other thing I've done that you didn't see. So now the last thing, I need storage. We're going 800 miles. Going to need to keep some tools, you know, maybe an extra set of pants, some rain gear, a couple things. I need something back here that I can store some equipment in, some extra parts and so forth. So here's what I'm going to do. The old Milwaukee pack out. I thought, well, that looks pretty good. It kind of got the black, the red, and the silver thing going on, so it kind of fits the bike. I kind of looked at it, tried to determine if I wanted to set this crate this way or this way. I don't really like the width, but I like the way it sits on there better. So I think we're actually going to go this direction. So. But before I can put this on there, let me show you a couple more things I got. I don't know if you guys are familiar with these pack-out systems, but the way this stuff all kind of locks together, snaps together, there's little pieces underneath that big crate that will lock into these, I don't know what you want to call these openings, I guess. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to mount that to the rack so that we can, and mount it solid so that I can then snap on the pack out. But if I need to take it off to take it into a hotel room or whatever, I can yank that off of there, and it's easy to do. But to be able to put this on there, it just doesn't line up right. So we got one more thing. I went with aluminum to try and keep the weight down. So I'm actually going to bolt that. There are 4 holes in this rack already. I don't remember if I put them on there or if they were already in that rack. But I drilled some corresponding holes, and this rack is going to bolt onto there, onto that. Then this will bolt to that piece of aluminum. And then eventually this, I'm not going to snap it in right now, but it sits on there and snaps into that. I don't like the extra width. You'll see it in a second once I get it snapped into place. I think I'm going to trim this bottom plate off a little bit and make it I can make it almost 2 inches narrower on each side. So, but before we get to there, let's don't get ahead of ourselves. I've got some hardware, and the first thing I'm going to do is get this aluminum plate bolted to the rack. Now, don't pay any attention to this. It's got the diamond tread. I only use that because that's what I had. And if I would have had a piece of smooth, I would have used it. I went with aluminum, like I said, to keep the weight down since I'm going to be carrying so much. I'll probably have the slowest bike of the three with because I'll probably be carrying the most gear and so forth. Anyway, let me go ahead and get this bolted on. That's all bolted down, good and solid, onto the rack that's on the bike. Now this piece, it already comes with, you know, holes and places to mount. So we're going to utilize, we're going to utilize these 4 bolt holes and bolt it to that piece of aluminum. But all this over here and over here is all extra. And so I think I'm just going to go back and right on this body line right here, I think I'm just going to cut that excess right off of there. Hopefully that showed. So I'm going to go back to the shop, do that, and I'll be right back. Well, I cut the 2 sides off of it. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. It kind of exposes it a little bit more, but you know, that's okay. I really was trying to get it as narrow as possible. Yeah, I think once it's down on the ground, maybe, you know, you're looking at it from a different angle, you might not notice it as bad, but oh well, it is what it is. I've already cut it off, so no going back now. All right, so I'm going to take a minute and get this bolted to that aluminum plate. Well, I'm going to wrap it up right there, but that's finishes this bike. I think it looks okay. Box is maybe a little bit big. I can get a smaller box and put on there. We might not need something quite as large as that one. I haven't started pulling out and organizing tools yet. You know, good thing about these bikes, you can take them apart with about 4 different wrenches, so we may not need all that much. But anyway, that worked out pretty well. I think it looks, you know, the way it fits on there works okay. Show you the inside of this particular bike. These are watertight. So it's got a couple trays on the top. You know, I was thinking for tools and some parts and so forth. And then actually it's pretty deep. You can kind of see how deep it is by, I don't know, that's probably what, 3.5 inches thick or something. And so clothes and some extra things down there below, rain gear, that sort of thing. I don't think I can do it one-handed. Let me move you to a tripod. So to release this from that bottom, there's a little tab or lever you pull up right here, and then that you can just take that right off. But it locks in. It will not come off until you release that. And like I said, the neat thing about these pack-out systems, you know, they've got a variety of different size cases, and once you put them in the right spot, they just all lock in. So I keep these in the RV when we take the Thirsty Turtle out and go visit suppliers or subscribers. I take these, but you know, for example, you could have something like that, and then another box on top, and it all just locks and latches together. So anyway, there you go, guys. I think I'm gonna call it quits on this bike, and we've got at least one more to do, maybe 2. Got to figure out how many people are going on this ride. So I'll see you on the next video.